For all of Jamaica's natural beauty, this is a country with a dark past. For centuries, the former British colony was a center of the slave trade. And that history has helped shape how lottery scamming is viewed in Jamaica. When a local TV station did a series of investigative reports on the subject, reporter Andrew Cannon says he found many Jamaicans used the country's history as justification for scamming.
One of the things we heard on the street was basically the persons involved in the scam are trying to get back what they call reparation money from slavery. In other words, because white persons had enslaved them, they believe that this is now their chance to get back money from white persons through the lottery scam.
Cannon said some Jamaicans don't even view it as a crime.
We not take their money, and them choose to send it.
Outside a Western Union office in Montego Bay, people told us if Americans are upset they've lost money, they only have themselves to blame.
Because we don't hold them with no knife, nor no gun. Americans choose to send their money come to it.
They love to gamble.
They love money.
They love money, I know that
Money.
It is important to note, of course, that not all Jamaicans feel this way. During my visit, I heard plenty of outrage directed at the scammers and concern that the country's reputation was being tarnished by a scamming culture that glorified fast money. Into this debate came a controversial reggae song that hit the airwaves last year.
Them call it scam, me call it a reparation. Every ghetto youth is a star.
Yo, yo.
So them want live like one.
Big up every scammer. We make US dollar. Build up the house for your mama.
The song has become so notorious that when Jamaica's National Security Minister, Peter Bunting, came to Washington, D.C. recently, he played the song for the assembled panel.
Them call it scam, me call it a reparation. Every ghetto youth is a star.
It gives you an idea of the sophistication of the propaganda and how catchy this is and how corrosive it is on the morals and values of the communities.
Bunting was here to explain to American officials the many ways his government is going after scammers.
You know, they try and pass themselves off as some sort of Robin Hood, and this is not really a crime, it is reparations for slavery. Well, we're taking these arguments, this propaganda, on frontally.
I think you have a group that has simply lost its moral compass. They're criminals.
Pamela Bridgewater is the American ambassador to Jamaica. She says combating lottery fraud and the culture that surrounds it must be a priority of her office and her Jamaican partners. I have a question I want to put in two parts. It has to do whether Jamaicans view this as a big, major problem for them. So first, does the present government, does it see it as a big problem?
Yes, in a word, it does.
No question about that.
No question about it.
Now with Jamaicans at large, always hard to generalize, but you circulate, you talk to Jamaicans at every level. Do the Jamaican people, as best you can judge it, do they see it as a big problem?
I think the Jamaican people, for the most part, the majority, see this as a scourge. They see it as an embarrassment to their country, to their brand, to their name. And yes, they see it as a major problem and they want it stopped.
$250?
That's all I need.
We're now back in Maine, in the home of Ella Hebert.
I'm sorry, I just can't get you $250.
On the phone with her is none other than Joe Johnson.
Borrow the money from your Social Security, I give it back to you double.
Joe, I don't have any money. You know that. You know I live on a string.
Noella is part of the same local police investigation we showed you earlier involving Pat Coffin, who lost thousands of dollars to Joe Johnson.
Yeah, I sent you a Christmas present, remember?
Send me a birthday present.
Noella says she grew close to Joe Johnson, in part because he was there for her when her husband was dying.
When Bud was in the hospital, he called me every day to see how Bud was doing. And then when Bud died, he was just there, you know. He would call, you know, he said, "Are you okay today? Or, you know, is there anything I can do? Do you want me to send you anything?" Or, no, just talking to you helps.
In the beginning, it was the classic story. Noella sent money in pursuit of lottery winnings. It's not clear exactly how much she lost, but what is clear is that at some point she didn't have any more money to send Joe Johnson. And that's when their relationship became a lot more complicated.
Well, he would say, I have somebody who's going to send you some money. And you can take $100 out of it and send the rest to me. And that's what I do.
And one of the people sending her money was Pat Coffin.
Are you ignoring my calls?
Noella knows her as Patricia.
And you can't get a hold of Patricia?
She doesn't talk to me anymore. I don't know where she's at.
Law enforcement we talked to said this kind of arrangement is not uncommon. Scammers often set up one of their victims to, in essence, launder money from other victims before it's sent to Jamaica.
How many different people have you collected money from and then forwarded it to Jamaica?
Maybe 20, 25 times.
Bill King is the deputy sheriff in York County, Maine, and he's been investigating these kinds of fraud cases for years.
Well, you do know that there's no company, that he doesn't have any superiors, that this is just, he's a crook.
There are other people there because I hear him talking all the time.
King says it can be hard for victims to accept the fact that they are being lied to, in part because they grow to trust the scammers.
And one time when he was asking me for money and he said, I need it really bad, he says that they're going to come after me. They're going to beat me up.
What Noella is doing for Joe Johnson, processing money from other victims, might sound shocking to an outsider. But she said the money she skimmed off the top was a payback for what she had lost.
On some level, she understood that something wasn't quite right. But on the other level, she doesn't want to lose a friend. I mean, she's being victimized too. She's lost her husband, she's lonely, she lives in Maine by herself and her cat, and I think she looks forward to his telephone calls. I think that's it. If you think of anything else, let us know.
Presently, the case against Joe Johnson remains an open investigation in the United States and in Jamaica. The biggest question hanging over this entire report is the one I'm most frequently asked when I tell people about these lottery scams. How can somebody give away all they have to someone they don't even know? It's impossible to delve into every victim's personal psychology, but the pervasiveness of these frauds suggests that there is something very basic at play. Shelly Taylor is a distinguished professor of psychology at UCLA.
As people get older, they are more likely to focus on positive things, less likely to focus on negative things. They'll divert their attention away from negative things. They forget negative memories. So there's a general bias among older adults toward positivity. The one vulnerability that this positivity seems to create, that we know of so far, is not recognizing untrustworthy behavior as well.
Taylor and her team studied the region of the brain that deals with trust. It's called the anterior insula, and they found a startling difference in brain activity when people of varying ages were presented with established visual cues for untrustworthiness.
On the left, we see a brain of a younger person, an actual brain of a younger person, and the pattern of activation. That's the activation in the anterior insula in the younger brain. And here's the brain of an older adult. I mean, as you can see, it looks almost identical. And what's astonishing, almost astonishing, is that there is no activation here at all.
Taylor's work is funded by the National Institute on Aging. She says the federal government is very concerned about how susceptible older Americans are to scams, especially as all those baby boomers head into retirement.
The fact that the brain in some sense is cooperating in being scammed suggests that you really have to cut the scammers off at the source. And what that means is teaching polite people to just hang up.
Finally tonight, we return to the story of Norman Brighton, the 81-year-old widower who was scammed out of $400,000, including his home.
Don't want somebody else to have to go through it.
After all we have learned about these destructive frauds, the manipulation, the playing on emotion, ultimately the cost of these crimes is borne one victim at a time.
I would hope if anybody hears what I've had to say, give it some thought and hopefully not get involved in this scam business, because they'll end up just like me with nothing. Because I don't have a pot to go in or a window to heave it out of. I lost it. I lost everything. And the best thing you can do, hang that god-daggone phone up. Do not talk to them in any way, shape, or form. Don't give them any information at all. Do not talk to them. If they get any information about you at all, they will use it any way they can to get you to send them money. And that's all they're interested in, getting your money.
This is an important story, and we hope we've given you a sense of how insidious and pervasive these scams, these predators can be. Remember that more than 90% of these scams go unreported, and many victims we talked to were surprised that they had been taken. We will continue to report on this topic. We always like to hear your thoughts on our program, but tonight it's particularly important if you or someone you know were involved in one of these scams, or if you have other information relating to this topic, please contact us. We can be reached on our Facebook page or through email at viewer@access.tv. From New York, for Access TV, Dan Rather reporting. Good night. If you would like to add your name to an email list for information on upcoming programs, or if you would just like to send a question or comment, please email us at viewer@access.tv.